Okay, so we're going to take a look at Docker and running Docker on our own local machine, and later on we'll use Docker up in Amazon Web Services. But let's get some experience on our own machine. So we need to download and install Docker, and you can find it here both for the Mac and for the PC. So once you've installed Docker, you need to make sure Docker is running. So here I'm going to launch Docker. This is on a Windows machine, and you can see that Docker is here, and you'll need super user permissions to run it, but it's running on mine. Let's take a look at what we're going to do. So we've got a directory here, and in it I've got a package.json, and I've got a very simple test0.js. Let's open test0.js. So test.js, so all that does is we require Express, we set up a server listening on port. I used 8082, let's change it to 8081, a little bit more friendly here. So that's our test0.js. We're just going to create a lucky number and push it back to the browser. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Now we need to make sure we've loaded up Express. So let me do npm init. Okay, and I'm going to call this Docker web server, license MIT. It's okay, yes. Okay, so now we've definitely got a package.json in here, and if I do an npm install express minus save, but we'll have Express installed as well. Package, and we see that we've got Express installed. I've set this already to start running node test0.js. Okay, so here's Docker web server, and now we need to set up two files. One is called Docker file, and here we set up node, get the latest node image, set our work directory as the present one. We copy package.json, run npm install, and expose port 8081. Okay, so let's save that. So what this does is basically creates a container, a Docker container, and now we're beginning to say what kind of operating system we want, and in this case we're installing node and creating a work directory, copying the JSON from the main computer to this Docker container. Then we run npm install, that'll install all the dependencies, and finally we expose 8081. Now we need another file called a YAML file, docker compose YAML, and so this is it here. I'm using version 3, and we set up a service. This is a web service. I called it web 5. You can call it anything. We can just call it web. And we need to build, and so that'll build it according to the Docker file, and I'm going to map the port 8081 of the main machine to the Docker container port 8081. So each container has its own kind of local ports, and in setting up a command to run node on that in that container. Okay, so let's save that. Now what we can do is we bring ourselves up a terminal, and we run docker compose up. It throws quite a lot of errors here, it seems, but it actually runs. So here it is, listening on port 8081. So this is now running in the Docker container, listening on that port. Let's check. So if I hit localhost 8081, comes back with my lucky number. So we now have a simple web server running in a Docker container, and we can do more complicated things, but that's the first stage.